So that problem involved multiplying twice to get our final answer. Our next example, this problem looks pretty wordy, but it just took a lot of writing to get it down. A measuring cup contains 360 5/10 milliliters of water to be used to dilute some paint for a kindergarten class activity. If you need to pour some water into 25 cups, approximately how many milliliters of water should you pour into each cup? Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a milliliter. So in other words, what we're doing is we've got 25 little cups that need some water in them, and we have 360.5 milliliters of water we can get. We've got a cup with this much water in it. We've got to pour out water from there into these little cups. So we want to divide, an even portion up into each of those 25 cups. So what we're doing is actually taking out equal portions. So we're going to be dividing up this into the 25 little cups. So it would be a division problem. And we're going to take our 360 5/10 and divide it by the 25. So let's do that. And so we can work the problem. We'll have to move our problem up. But this is how much water we had. And we're dividing it up so it'll have the same amount in each of those 25 cups. We're splitting it up into 25 equal portions. And this is going to tell us how much should go in each of those cups. So since our divisor is a whole number, we don't have to move our decimal. We're ready just to start dividing. So we can divide 25 into 36 one time. 1 times 25 is 25. When we subtract, we get 11. Bring down our 0. 25 will go into 110, probably 4 times, because there are 4 25s and 100. So let's try 4. 4 times 5 is 20, and carry our 2. 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 is 100. Leaves us with 10. Now what I didn't do is bring my decimal straight up, so let's do that. We didn't move it so it comes straight up. And then we bring our 5 down. And 25 will go into 105 4 times also. 4 times 25 is 100. And when we subtract, we get 5. Now, it doesn't appear that it's going to come out even, but this said to round to the nearest tenth of a milliliter. So if we want to round to tenths, tenths means one place. We always have to go one more place. So instead of tenths, we're going to need hundredths, so we need to add a 0 and keep on going. 25 goes into 50 2 times. 2 times 25 is 50. Now it actually comes out to be exactly 14 42 hundredths of a milliliter. But since the directions said round to the nearest tenth, we'll do that. So we want to round, we'll say about 14, and we have to decide whether to make it 4 tenths or 5 tenths. So since this is a tenth, we look one digit over, and since it's less than 5, we keep it a 4. So if we want to round the tenths, it's about 14 4/10 milliliter. Milliliter is a metric unit of measurement for measuring liquid. So we'd have to put 14 4/10 milliliters into each of those little 25 cups. So all the cups would have the same amount, and we'd use up our 360 50 hundredths milliliters. I'd like for you to do some practice problems. The first one, about 6/10 of your body weight is water. If you weigh 200 pounds, how many pounds are water weight? Number 2, tickets to a play cost $4, and 325 tickets have been sold. How much money will be left for profit if expenses total $195 $2.25. Copy these problems down, think about what they say, and then see if you can work them. Cut the tape off while you're working the problems. And then once you think you have them correct, cut the tape back on to check your answers. The practice problem answers are number 1, 120 pounds, number 2, $1,104.75. If you disagree with one of these answers or don't understand how to get the answer, stop the tape and go get some help. Now we want to leave our application problems or our word problems involving decimals and do some work with some formulas that also use decimals. We're going to be working with circles and finding the circumference and the area of a circle. So let's begin by talking about exactly what a circle is. A circle is the set of all points that are equidistant from a fixed point called the center. In other words, if you start with a point and a certain distance, like suppose my distance was 4 and I wanted to find, say 4 inches, and I wanted to find every single point that was 4 inches from this point. This might be a point, so every single point out here on this circle is the same distance from the center. Now that distance that we're talking about, that's the same. The distance from the center, the segment that represents that is called the radius of a circle. The radius is the segment that's drawn from the center of the circle to a point on the circle. And so if I start at the center and come over here, that particular segment is called the radius of the circle. And I could draw lots of them. Any segment that goes from the center of the circle to a point on it, each of these would be a radius. And what those represent is this distance that we're talking about here. Every point on this circle is the same distance from the center, and that distance would be, you could go from the center to that point, draw in that segment, and that's your radius. So that distance is your radius. Now, as I said, a radius is a point that goes from the center and touches the circle. If you extend your segment all the way through to the other side, and this should go straight on across here, if I go all the way through the center and have an end point on each side of the circle, we come up with what we call the diameter of the circle. The diameter is a segment from one point on the circle through the center to another point. So a diameter would really be made up of 2 radii. Here would be a radius, and here would be a radius. And when you put those two together, you come up with this diameter. And your diameter, though, has to be just one segment, and it has to have its end points on the circle, and it must go through the circle center. Now, so when we're working with circles, we need to know the difference between a diameter and a radius. A radius just goes from a point on the circle to the center, so it just goes halfway across. The diameter goes all the way across. So we need to learn the relationship between a circle's diameter and its radius. We could say the diameter is 2 times the radius as far as how long it is. the length of the diameter would be twice the length of a radius. Or another way of saying it is the radius of a circle would be 1/2 as long as the diameter. So the radius is half as long as the diameter, or the diameter is twice as long as the radius. We need to keep those relationships straight.